This class is part of the Lessons in Tanya project. More classes available at lessonsintanya.com. Major funding for this Tanya class is provided by the Mettel Corporation. Additional funding is provided by Tanya students like you. Lessons in Tanya. The Tanya of Rabbi Schneur Zalman of Liadi, taught by Rabbi Ben Zion Krasnianski. Tanya's text elucidated by Rabbi Yosef Weinberg.
On the bottom of page 342. Today is a very auspicious day. It's Hey Menachem Av. It's the yahrzeit of the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, the greatest Kabbalist that ever lived in the city of Tzfat around 500 years ago. He's referred to as Ari HaChai, Ari the lion. Ari HaChai is alive and is more alive with each passing year. And the whole Chassidus is based on the Kabbalah of the Arizal, who was like the last word on Kabbalah. So, on this very special day, we continue the Tanya. It's essay number 4, probably the most profound essay, the deepest essay. We learned last week that the difference between when you study Torah, although the Torah discusses our physical world, Torah is telling us kosher, not kosher, guilty, not guilty, permitted, not permitted, right or wrong, true or false. The Torah is dealing with the physical world, agriculture, animals, civil law, etc. Although we find Hashem's wisdom in everything in this world, everything is created with Hashem's wisdom. You find tremendous wisdom in everything. That's the ingredient with which Hashem created the world, with wisdom. 32 paths of wisdom, the opening of the book of formation, which refers to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and the 10 numbers, 10 sfirot. And these are the paths of wisdom that lead from wisdom to the heart, and then which Hashem creates the world. The whole world is created with the concepts and numbers and letters. So we find Hashem's wisdom in everything. But there's a big difference. Because in the world, the world conceals. Hashem is concealed, is hidden. And therefore it's mundane, it's not holy. But in the Torah, although the wisdom discusses, the wisdom of the Torah, the divine wisdom discusses the material, but it's like it just passes through. The analogy is like when you write an idea with your fingers. So the idea is transmitted through the finger. The finger has no concept of what it's writing. But to get from the idea to the paper, you need a physical finger, you need a pen and a paper, and you're writing. So the finger is just transmitting, the finger is just passing through. It doesn't contain anything, it doesn't retain anything, it doesn't dilute it, it doesn't shape it, define it, it doesn't internalize it, it's just completely see-through, passing through. Like the body and the soul, the body is a completely see-through, transparent to the soul. Just a container, but it's completely nullified to the soul. When I look at the body, I'm talking to you, your personality, your character, your soul. Not the corpse, not the clay. It's completely transparent. So yes, it's discussing the physical and the material, but it's totally transparent. It's like the finger that's transmitting the divine wisdom. What Hashem thinks. Right or wrong, guilty or not guilty, obligated or not obligated, kosher or not kosher, pure or impure. It's Hashem's thought process that's being transmitted via the physical subject matter that we're discussing. So I'm getting the direct transmission of the divine wisdom. Versus the divine wisdom in science and physics that we find in everything in this world, it's internalized, it's concealed. It's like when the teacher wants to teach and he's too abstract for the students, and he has a maturgaman, he has someone who translates it, who internalizes it and then dilutes it and then transmits it, but it's already altered. He altered the message. It goes through, it's processed. The message is processed. And it's a little distorted or altered. You're not getting the pure, direct transmission. So yes, everything in this world ultimately at the root and at the source is divine, but the divine is processed and concealed and hidden, and by the time it goes through that process, it's totally concealed. And what you get is something that's either physical or tangible, something that's, so it's diluted, it's distorted, it's not the same. That's the distinction. Now he's going to use an analogy. On the bottom of page 342, just as
on the festivals from Chesed of Atzilut, which is completely clothed in Chesed of Beriah, vivifies this visible world by passing through the Chesed of Yetzirah and the Asiyah.
So during the day, during a holiday, the world is elevated. The world receives its life force. Chesed is the kindness with which the life force, with which Hashem creates the world with chesed, with His love and kindness. But it's on a higher level. The world is receiving its animation from a higher world, a more elevated world, a world of creation. During the week, the world receives its life force. It depends, outside the land of Israel, in the land of Israel. Outside the land of Israel, we receive our life force from the kindness of Asiyah, which is the lowest world. And the halacha says that the earth outside of Israel and the atmosphere outside of Israel contaminates you, is tameh and contaminates you, versus the land of Israel and the atmosphere in the land of Israel is pure. Because the land of Israel all week round receives its life force from the world of formation. It's a higher energy, versus the rest outside of Israel. On Yom Tov, it's a holy day. It's a good day. Mikroi Kodesh. It's a day that we invite holiness. So we receive our life force then from the world of creation. But we can't receive the life force directly from the world of creation, because the world of creation is a spiritual world. It's a spiritual realm. We are physical. But we receive our life force primarily from the world of creation, but it passes through, he's going to say in a moment, it passes through the world of formation and the world of creation. But it just passes through. It's not diluted, it's not altered, it's not changed, it's not fitted to the world of formation and action. It just passes through. But what you're getting is the transmission. You're getting the transmission of the world of creation. And that's why on Yom Tov we feel elevated. It's a holier day. Because we're operating in a different dimension. The world is receiving its life force from a higher level. But it's transmitted through the world of formation and action. Just like the finger is transmitting the idea. So it just goes through, it just passes through. It's not affected by it. It doesn't affect it whatsoever. It's not like the case of a teacher, or let's say a teacher wants the idea, you're trying to transmit an idea that's too dazzling or too brilliant or bright for the student's mind. So the teacher has to teach it by way of a parable. So when the concept goes through the parable, the idea is changed by the parable. The parable matches the idea, but it's altered in the parable. It fits the parable, it's altered in the parable. What you're getting something a little diluted. It's not the same. The light is dimmed. Light is altered. Yes, there's a nugget inside. It's parallel, but I don't see that. Like a hologram, where you project a three-dimensional reality on a two-dimensional surface. But you take the two-dimensional reality, you just take it at face value. I see a cartoon, I see a two-dimensional reality. I don't realize that this cartoon, this two-dimensional reality, is really a projection of a three-dimensional reality. Or four-dimensional, or five-dimensional. What I see is I just see this dimension, and it's disconnected. Were I to see, to read it correctly, and realize that all I'm seeing is I'm just seeing the tip of the iceberg, I'm just seeing a projection, and then when I would look at the projection, I would read and see its origin, where it's coming from. But I don't see that. I just take it at face value. Like the student hears the parable, he doesn't see the brilliance, the inner core where the parable is coming from. I just see the parable. It's interesting, I get it, I can grasp it. That's my world, that's my reality. I don't see beyond that. I learned something, I can understand it. But it's really just a projection of something so much deeper and from a whole different dimension of understanding and comprehension. But I don't see that. So the parable blocks. It's almost like disconnected, it blocks. I don't see where it's coming from. So the idea is changed in the parable, affected by the parable. It's concealed, it's hidden. So to this world, everything comes from Hashem. Everything is Hashem. Everything is God. Everything in this world is merely a projection of something godly. Every organ in the body is merely just a projection of the soul. The soul has a capacity to see, and it's projected in the physical organ of the eye, which perfectly matches the soul's ability to see. And the same as with every organ. So everything in the world is really just a projection, a materialization of something spiritual. The taste of the fruit is a projection, the sweetness in the fruit is a projection of a spiritual sweetness. It manifests itself in the material form of physical sweetness. There's a spiritual sweetness. There's a sweetness in doing someone a favor, kindness. There's a sweetness in figuring out an idea. There's a sweetness in song and music. There's a sweetness in spiritual ecstasy. There's a sweetness in godly ecstasy. So it's just a manifestation of a deeper and a higher form of light. But I don't see that. All I see is the physical manifestation. I don't see the connection between the spiritual and the divine and the projection. So that's the idea that the godly energy is enclosed, it is like trapped, is hidden and concealed, it's internalized, and therefore it's changed, it's altered. And therefore it's disconnected. I don't see its origin. Versus when it just passes through, like the finger conveys an idea, it's not altered, it's not hidden, it's not concealed, it's not limited. It just passes through. Yes, it's through the finger, but the finger is not a vessel for it, the finger is not a vehicle for it, this finger has no clue. It's just passing through. So it's pure. It's coming directly from the mind, from the brain, through the finger and the pen and the paper. The idea is pure, it's undiluted. So you're getting the higher dimension, but it's coming through the finger, because otherwise you can't communicate it. How do I communicate my idea to my head if I don't write it down? I don't know what you're thinking. I can't read minds. So it's conveyed through the finger. That's all it is. It's just conveying it. But it's conveying it in its purity, unadulterated, exactly as is. Undimmed, undiminished. So on Yom Tov, this is what happens on Yom Tov. On Yom Tov, the world receives a higher level of energy from a much higher world, from the world of creation, which is the closest to the world of emanation. And that's why on Yom Tov you feel spiritual, you feel uplifted. It's a different energy. The whole day, the world is a different energy on Yom Tov. We're dressed up, but it's just a manifestation, a symptom of how we feel inside, that it's something special. It's a special day. It's not just a regular Tuesday, a regular Monday, a regular Wednesday. It's a Yom Tov. It's a holy day. It's a Mikra Kodesh. We invite holiness. So that comes through. And we sense it. We sense it in the physical world. So yes, in order to arrive, in order to affect us and impact us, it has to go through the world of formation and the world of action. Just like in order for the idea to reach us, it has to go through the finger. So it has to go through the world of formation and action. But what are we getting? What do we feel? What do we sense? We feel that energy, the energy of the world of creation. A whole different level of energy. It's not a regular day. It's a holy day, a special day.
This passage is also called investment, for otherwise it would not affect the physicality of this world. Thus, just as with regard to the festivals, through the animation light first passes through דיצירה and Asiyah, it is still considered to be an illumination of Chesed of Beriah, so too with regards to the laws. The light within the laws merely passes through the physicality with which they deal. It always retains a radiation of supreme wisdom.
So yes, the Torah deals with things that we could relate to, with the physical, from agriculture to animals to civil law, even the religious law. It talks about things that we can relate to. Otherwise, we couldn't relate. But what are we getting? What's being transmitted to us? The divine wisdom, the way Hashem thinks. And it's coming through loud and clear. It's being transmitted clearly, undiluted. There's no hit, there's no concealment.
Rather, the physicality of this world, as discussed in the law, unquestionably conceals completely even the Chesed of Asiyah, and surely then it conceals the diffusion of supreme wisdom.
So the question is, even the kindness of Asiyah, the world of Asiyah, it's still a spiritual world. And this kindness with which Hashem creates the physical, the material, the tangible world, that's a cover-up and a concealment even for the level of kindness of the spiritual world of action. So when you're studying Torah, the objects that you're discussing are physical, created beings, tangible, physical, material beings of this world of action, which is a cover-up even on the level of the kindness of the spiritual world of action. How much more so a cover-up on the level of wisdom, especially the supernal wisdom. So how could you say when you study Torah, there is no concealment, there is no cover-up? It's transparent. How can you say that?
Still, the law proper is not actually physical. It is the divine will drawn from the supreme wisdom for leniency or severity. Hashem's wisdom affirms that it be His will that a particular legal ruling be either lenient or strict. It is only that this will descends and illuminates in revealed fashion in the realm of the physical, just as water descends from a high place and so on. It is the very same water that is now to be found in a low place.
So he's saying, when you're studying Torah, yes, I'm dealing with the physical, the subject matter is something that's physical, of this world. But what am I studying? I'm studying the divine will, the divine wisdom. What does Hashem say in this case? Hashem thinks it's kosher, it's not kosher, it's permitted, it's not, or prohibited, pure and impure. So I'm studying Hashem's wisdom. So even though Hashem's wisdom is discussing something physical, tangible, we can relate to, connect with, but what I'm getting is Hashem's wisdom, undiluted. And that's why the Torah is compared to water. Because water flows from high, water finds, you have water leaks and problems, water will find any opening and water will find the lowest spot. That's just the nature of water, it's unstoppable. So the nature of water is that it finds the lowest spot. When the water that flows to the bottom, it's the very same water that was on top. It's the same water that was on top is now all of a sudden all the way in the bottom, in the lowest part. The same water. It's undiluted. So the same divine wisdom that was found in the divine realms, that very same divine wisdom is found in the physical discussion about the cow and the donkey and the landlord and the tenant and the animal and the field and the tomato and the potato. I mean, it's the very same divine wisdom, and the anatomy and the person. Yes, because the physical object is dense and material. But here I'm studying Torah. I'm not engaged in the physical object, I'm engaged in the divine wisdom. What does Hashem think about this and this situation? What's right and what's wrong? What's truth and what's false? What's correct, what's not correct? Should we be lenient, should we be strict? This is Hashem's will, this is Hashem's opinion, this is what Hashem thinks. That's what I'm engaged in. What does Hashem think about this? So what difference does it make what the subject matter is? Just because the subject matter is an animal, or a carcass, or two crooks, what's the difference? It's not about the object, it's about what Hashem thinks. What's right and what's wrong. And that's Hashem's wisdom himself, undiluted. And that's what's being transmitted to us. And that's what we're getting when you study Torah. You're getting Hashem's wisdom, the divine supernal wisdom, undiluted. The same water that was on high, that very same water. Hashem came down the mountain. Hashem took the Torah from heaven and brought it down the mountain into the physical realm. It's the very same Torah, the very same wisdom, the very same. And all its purity.
The physical object itself, which the Lord does in fact utterly obscure. As for example, in the law of one who exchanges a cow for a donkey, or the laws concerning flesh, that is figure or not figure, and is kosher.
So in the case of someone exchange a cow for a donkey, and the cow gave birth, but I'm not sure if he gave birth before the exchange or after the exchange. So who does the calf belong to? Or in the case of Pigul, is the Kohen who's offering a sacrifice has to keep his thoughts pure and proper. If he has a wrong thought, if he thinks that he's going to sprinkle the blood at the wrong time, not in the properly allotted time, and he's thinking this while he's slaughtering the animal, then he disqualifies that thought disqualifies the whole sacrifice, makes the whole sacrifice invalid. And if you eat from that sacrifice, you'll lose your life. Your life gets cut off. So all these laws, like we learned earlier, today sitting on the Upper East Side in 2018, the laws of Pigul, we don't have a temple, unfortunately, and there are no sacrifices, unfortunately. All these laws are completely irrelevant. But it doesn't matter. What I'm studying is, what does Hashem say? In this case, it's kosher. In this case, it's not kosher. This is what Hashem desires. This is what Hashem is thinking about the subject matter. This is what Hashem wants. And that's just as relevant and just as applicable and just as current as any time. So therefore, yes, the animal itself, I'm not dealing with a physical donkey or cow right now. I'm just talking about the idea. If in this case, this is what Hashem decides, this is what Hashem desires. This is right and this is wrong. So I'm not dealing here with a physical donkey. It's the concept, it's the idea of the donkey. So the physical donkey is coarse and crass and materialistic. It's a donkey. and a cow. Nothing holy about the donkey, nothing holy about the cow. I'm discussing the donkey, but it doesn't make the donkey holy, it doesn't make the cow holy. But the idea that in this case, Hashem says that this is correct, and this is the law, and this is right, and this is wrong. In this case we're strict, in this case we're lenient. That's divine. That's relevant and current and eternal, and I'm getting the same Torah, the same divine wisdom. It's just discussing this physical scenario. But the idea is divine and the idea is God. Versus when we learned earlier, when you do a mitzvah with an object, when you do a mitzvah with the esrog, you shake the lulav and the esrog, the actual esrog itself is godly. Because you're doing a mitzvah with it. You're fulfilling the divine will with this esrog. And the same is with all the physical mitzvah. But when you're studying Torah, I'm discussing a donkey. It doesn't make a donkey holy. Torah is holy. The donkey is not. The donkey is a donkey. The donkey is part of this world. And it's a cow and it's a donkey. But I'm discussing Hashem's wisdom in this scenario. So I'm drawing Hashem down. Hashem's wisdom descends and engages in our world. A world that we can relate to. A world of cows and a world of donkeys and a world of animals. But what's being transmitted to us? What am I engaged in? What am I learning? What am I connecting with? Hashem's wisdom. Undiluted. Clear, direct wisdom. It's what Hashem is thinking.
The actual cow or donkey of flesh do in fact completely conceal the radiance from the supreme wisdom. In contrast, it was stated above that when holding a physical etrog, one is grasping the Hashem's essence of Atzilut. The difference lies in the fact that the etrog is part of the mitzvah. As such, it has no identity other than godliness and thus does not conceal it. Since by contrast the physical cow or donkey are not part of the law, they can conceal godliness. With regard to the human intellect, however, which studies the law, since the intellectual cow and donkey are part of the law, they in fact do not act as a concealment.
Here it's the idea of the donkey, the concept. I'm studying an idea. In this case, in this scenario. So the idea of the donkey and the idea of the cow is not a concealment. It's just transmitting what Hashem thinks in this case. The same wisdom and the same will of Hashem that's in the heaven and that deals with spiritual realities and divine realities. That very same will and wisdom is transmitted in a physical scenario. It's the same wisdom, the same will. How do we approach it? What's the godly way to approach this scenario, this case, this instance? Lenient, strict, kosher, not kosher, guilty, not guilty, right, wrong, pure, impure, permitted, prohibited. So it's totally not a concealment. It's just a transmission. It's like the fingers just transmitting the divine wisdom, undiluted, undimmed, direct in its entirety. Like water, the very same water that was up there, the very same water we're getting down here. Versus the material world, the donkey itself, the cow itself, is a total cover-up and concealment in godliness. Even though the donkey and the cow is a projection of the spiritual, but I don't see that. It's completely covered up and concealed, and it's buried there, it's hidden and concealed and distorted, and Therefore, it's a materialistic being that's disconnected from Hashem. It's mundane. It's not holy. There's nothing holy about it. When I do a mitzvah with something physical, yes, that object of the mitzvah becomes a holy object. Absolutely. Because I'm fulfilling the divine will with this physical object. But when I'm studying Torah, even though I'm studying the Torah, the 630 mitzvahs deal with the physical, the anatomy and the animal and the flesh and the field and all the nitty-gritty of this physical world, time and space and objects. But the subject matter doesn't matter. What I'm studying is Hashem's will, Hashem's wisdom. So I'm connecting directly with Hashem. That's what's being transmitted to us, directly, openly. Just like the finger is transmitting the idea. It doesn't hide the idea, it doesn't conceal. It transmits it in all its purity. Just passing through.
Only the legal ruling itself, with its revealed rationale, are from Chesed of Beriah, i.e. the reasoning of the Gemara, and of Yetzirah, i.e. the rulings of the Mishnah, of the state of Neshama, which is godliness that vivifies and brings into being the Nefesh Ruach of Beriah, Yetzirah and Asiyah, which are in the category of created beings.
So the halacha itself, and the reasons of the halacha, that's the world of creation, which is the source of the Talmud. It's the world of the intellect. That gives the reasons, the underlying rationale behind the halacha. Versus the world of formation, that's the world of the Mishnah, which gives us the halacha itself. Just the halacha, right and wrong, kosher, not kosher. Without the reasons, just the verdict, the halacha itself, the law itself, which are the emotions, the world of emotions. Should we be strict? Should we be rejecting? Should we be embracing and loving and saying it's kosher, it's permitted? So it's the emotional verdict. Yes, no. Guilty, not guilty. The intellectual rationale behind it, the in-depth understanding of what's behind it, that's the Talmud. But all of this is the Torah. This is the world of godliness. This is the neshama, which is still godly, which creates the nefesh and the ruach, the nefesh and the spirit, and the creations of the world of creation and the world of formation, the souls and the angels, which are entities, created beings. So this is a result of the godliness, which is the neshama, which is the Torah, which is Hashem, Hashem's will, Hashem's wisdom, undiluted, and the neshama, the soul, which is godly. Like we discussed last week, all the scientists in the world can create a soul, a sentient being. We're not a building block, we're not a Lego of parts, and you can put together and nothing happens. It's not a mechanical event. It's something that comes from within. It's pure. It's a neshama. It's godly. We don't understand our neshama, but we know. We just experience it. We know it's something mystical and magical, and just something that comes from within. You can't explain it. There's no scientific explanation. It's a godly. So the neshama is godly. Just like we have a neshama, so we are the microcosm. So the macrocosm, there's the neshama. So the neshama of every world is godly. And the godliness gives birth to the nefesh and the ruach, which is already the energy which you don't sense the godliness. It's like an independent, separate being. It's like words that are disconnected from a speaker, as if there are words without a speaker. There's energy. Where's the energy come from? I don't know. The energy. There's words. If there are words, maybe there's a speaker. No, there's words. I don't see any connection to a speaker. There's energy. What? God? When God? And then of course the sentient beings and the independent beings and the angels and the souls. So they're all created beings. But where's their source? Their source is the neshama. That's what creates them. And that's the external level of Malchut, of Hashem's divine speech. And that's what creates them. So everything in this world is rooted really in the halacha, in the Torah. Everything is rooted in the Torah. The Torah is the Malchut, the Hashem's divine speech, Hashem's divine communication. And this is the neshama with which Hashem creates the world, creates the nefesh and the ruach, and then the entities of each and every world, the angels and the souls, and then the physical creatures of this world. So the Torah is really the blueprint of all of reality. Everything that exists in this world must originate in the Torah. It says Hashem looked in the Torah and it created the world. Nothing could exist in this world without the Torah. Because the Torah, that's the divine will, that's the divine wisdom. That's the divine communication. And that's the neshama, which is godly, which has the ability to create, which creates the world. So the world of Talmud, the level of the Torah of Talmud, the revelation of the level of Torah of Talmud, that creates the world of the angels, of the souls, the world of intellect. The level of the Mishnah, that creates the world of, and the angels of the world of formation, the emotional level. And then the action, that gives the written Torah, which is the world of action, that creates the world of action. Our world, physical world, material world, dense world. So it all originates in the Torah, and
which is godliness that vivifies and brings into being the nefesh ruach of Beriah, Yetzirah and Asiyah, which are in the category of created beings, and which are the awe and love of angels and souls and their Chabad, i.e. the contemplation of Hashem's greatness, that leads to love and fear. All this is created and vivified ex nihilo, as are all created beings.
so the souls and the angels and their level of spirituality and the higher levels of consciousness and the level of comprehension and the feelings of awe of Hashem and the feelings of love and closeness to Hashem, this is all created. It's created from the neshama, from the godliness, from the Torah.
As to this radiation of supreme wisdom that descends through the Malchut of Beriah and the Tzira in the form of Torah, as it is found in those worlds prior to its descent below, it therefore slakes the thirst of the souls of the angels in the worlds of Beriah and Yetzirah before its ascent into this world like descending waters.
So they are nourished by the Torah. The souls and the angels are nourished by the Torah, like water when it descends, because the Torah, this is the divine. This is the divine will. This is the divine wisdom, undiluted. It's godly. The Torah, whatever level it's at, whether it's the level of the Talmud, the level of the Mishnah, the level of the written Torah, in other words, whether it's the level of the world of creation, the world of formation, the world of action, it's divine, it's godly, it's the neshama, which creates. It has the ability to create all these entities. And not only it creates it and sustains it and nourishes it and slakes the thirst. That's why the angels wanted to receive the Torah, because they, by studying the Torah, this slakes their thirst, because they're getting something godly. As spiritual as they are, it's when they study Torah, because all their spirituality is limited. They can't get beyond the glass ceiling. They can't break out of their entities. They're created beings, spiritual, but created beings, separate and apart from Hashem. When they study Torah, this is divine. So that when they study Torah on their level, on the level of the world of creation, the world of formation, this slakes their thirst. This is godly. They're connecting to something godly. That's what they desire. That's what they want. And even after it descends,
Even after it descends into Asiyah, it transcends by far Chabad of Asiyah, even of a state of neshama, which is godliness. For this is godliness of Asiyah, while the illumination of supreme wisdom within the laws of the godliness of Atzilut.
so he says in the Torah, even when the Torah comes down in the world of action and discusses physical scenarios in our physical world, which is the Torah as we know it, it's higher than the level of wisdom, chachma, even the level of neshama. Because even though it's godly, the level of neshama of every world is the soul. The neshama is godly, and that's what gives birth to the energy and to the created beings of that world. But it's the level of godliness of that world. Versus the Torah is the level of the supernal wisdom, of the world of emanation, which comes down clearly and directly, undiluted, like water, the very same water that was all the way on high, all the way on top, on the highest level. That very same water comes down all the way to the lowest. That's the exact same water, undiluted, unchanged. So when you're studying Torah, you're touching and you're connected to the level of the divine supernal wisdom of the world of emanation. You're learning Hashem's wisdom, you're learning Hashem's will, unchanged, undiluted, even though the Torah is dealing with physical things and physical matters of this physical world, of this coarse, crass, dense world. But it doesn't matter, the subject matter doesn't change it one iota. What I'm getting is the divine wisdom itself, the supernal wisdom, the highest level. That's why Torah is so precious, Torah is so special. And that's why the angels and the souls, this is what slakes their thirst. It's the Torah that they're learning on their level, because it's divine. And the Torah that we're learning in this world, the 5-year-old child is learning is Chumash and Rashi, the pasuk, simple. You are learning the divine wisdom. You're learning halacha and Shulchan Aruch, in the code of Jewish law. You're learning the divine wisdom, the supernal wisdom, unchanged. Undiminished. So you can understand why a Jew gets so excited when you're learning Torah. You can wrap your mind around an idea that we can grasp, because the Torah deals with the physical, our world, our reality. We can relate to it 100%. We know exactly what we're talking about. I know what a landlord is, and I know what a tenant is, and I know what an animal is, and I know what a cow is, and I know what a donkey is. But what am I learning? What am I gaining? What am I connecting with? What am I touching? The supernal wisdom of Hashem, the highest level, which is greater than the highest level of godliness in the world of action, which is the source of all created beings in the world of action, or the highest level of godliness in the world of formation, which is the source of all created beings in the world of formation, or the highest level of the world of creation, which is the source of all the beings in the world of creation. Here I'm touching the supernal wisdom, the divine wisdom of the world of emanation, Hashem.
The reason for this transcendence is that the Chabad of Asiyah, of the state of Neshama, is the source of life of Chabad, of Nefesh Ruach, and their offspring, and their coming into being ex nihilo with their offspring, unto the ultimate stage of Asiyah, namely the earth and all its hosts. The Chabad of Asiyah, in the state of Neshama, is thus a source for created beings. But as to the Chabad of the Lord with their rationales that are in Malchut of Beriah and Yetzirah, the level of Chabad is not a source of created beings. Rather, the function of the Chokhmah within them is the rectification of the visage of Atzilut, upon which are dependent all the rationales of the commandments. The rationale of the positive commandments depend on the 5 attributes of kindness of Zeranpin of Atzilut, and the rationale of the prohibitions in the 5 attributes of severity of Zeir Anpin of Atzilut. Therefore, even when they descend to be clothed in created being, even when the rationales for the laws that essentially derived from visage of Atzilut descended to become rationales for laws for created beings, they are in Malchut of Beriah and Yetzirah of the specific godly state of Neshama, which is of the vessels of Atzilut. The 30 vessels of Zeir Anpin of Atzilut become a Neshama for Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. And note of the degree of Ruach and Nefesh, the rationales for the laws did not vest themselves within Ruach and Nefesh, which are created beings.
Yes.
And now you're going to be here for the whole time.
Wow.
That was a lot.
I think we need the Arizal to help us understand this, explain this. He says the level of godliness in every world, even the Chabad, the highest level of godliness in the world of action, the level of neshama, which is godly, but it is the source and the life force of the energy and the created beings of the world of action. So since it becomes a source for them, so it's not on the same level as the Chabad, the wisdom and the understanding and the knowledge of the laws of the Torah and the reason, which does not become a source for creation. It's above creation. Torah transcends creation. Torah precedes the world. Torah is beyond this world. Even when the Torah comes down and discusses and deals with the realities of our world and in great detail and the nitty-gritty, and it gets down to the tiniest detail. And to be a master of Torah, you really have to master the subject matter that you're dealing with. A rabbi went and studied an animal for 3 years in order to know the laws of Bechor, what's disqualifies it, what's considered a mum, a defect, not a defect. You have to know. A rabbi gives a halachic verdict. He has to understand the subject matter. He has to know the medicine. He has to understand how the body works. He has to understand how the medicine works. He has to know, master it, in order to apply the Torah to this scenario, to this in this case. But the Torah remains aloof. The Torah remains transcendent. The Torah remains beyond this world. Because the Torah really deals with something very lofty. As the Shalah HaKadosh, the holy Shalah, Rabbi Shaya Levi Horowitz, who's buried in Tveria, near Maimonides. We visited it. And he writes, the Torah speaks above and hints below. The Torah is speaking about physical things, but really the Torah is talking about divine.
But the Torah above is not the Torah below. It's not the
It's the exact same Torah.
It's the exact same.
It's like water. The exact same Torah. But the subject matter primarily is the divine realm. And then it's projected into our realm. But the primary subject matter is above, in the divine realm. When Torah says something is kosher, something is permitted, this comes from Hashem's divine attribute of kindness. When Hashem says something is prohibited, it comes from the divine attribute of strictness, to stop the flow, to restrict the flow. When Hashem says it's kosher, it comes from Hashem's attribute of kindness, to allow for the flow. So the Torah primarily deals with the divine, the godly. So all the rationale in the Torah, all the reasons, and the real reason is really a deep, mystical, divine reason. And that very same reason manifests itself then in every dimension, all the way down to the physical dimension. If this is right and this is correct, it's correct on every level. It works on every level. Once this is right and this is correct on the divine level, at the source, then it will work on every level. So you have the same Torah, you have at the simple level, and then you have the more allegorical level, and then you have the deeper level, and you have the mystical level, and the spiritual level, the mystical level, and divine. Since it works and operates on the ultimate and the divine level, so that same truth will manifest itself on every dimension. But it's that singular truth, it's that one singular truth. The Torah primarily deals with the divine. For example, the Torah speaks about a flood. The Torah precedes the world, the Torah transcends creation. What is the meaning of a flood? Flood is negative. There was sin, there was a flood. But the primary meaning of a flood is what Isaiah describes, characterizes as the Messianic era. There'll be a flood of knowledge that will purify the world, that will destroy the earthiness and the coarseness and the crassness of the world. So the Torah primarily deals with the divine. We're not dealing with anything negative, with anything coarse, crass, disconnected. It's dealing with very lofty divine reality. That's the primary essence of the Torah. And that truth manifests itself like water. The very same water will come down in every level. That very same truth will manifest itself. And that truth will fit in every dimension. It's going to work practically, and it's going to work emotionally, and it's going to work psychologically, and it's going to work intellectually, and it's going to work spiritually, and it's going to work at every level. It's real, it fits, it's perfect. So it's perfect. It's divine. Only the divine is perfect. And that perfection manifests itself on every level, all the way down to the physical. But it's that very same truth, it's that divine perfection that manifests and permeates every single, even the physical, even the most simple, the physical, the practical. So it's primarily, you're talking about a divine perfection, a lofty divine truth, perfection, that just comes down in every level. So the Torah transcends the world. Even when the Torah manifests itself and comes down to this world, it's never a part of this world. It's beyond. It's a divine truth. It's divine perfection that comes down into this world. So it's not like the divine energy that creates the world. The divine energy that creates the world, yes, it's godly, but it creates the world. It's the source for this world. The Torah transcends the world. The Torah remains transcendent. As the Talmud says, Torah does not receive impurity. Torah is above impurity, it's above time and space. That's why you can study Torah. And it says if you study Torah, it's as if, it's considered as if you've done it. But it transcends time and space. If I study about the sacrifices, it's as if I've offered sacrifices. When I practically bring a sacrifice, I'm limited in time and space. I could only bring a sacrifice during the day. A Kohen. But any Jew who studies sacrifices day or night, I'm not a Kohen. It's considered as if I've brought the sacrifice. Torah transcends time and space. Torah is transcendent. Torah is divine. Torah deals primarily with the lofty, with the divine, with the godly. It precedes the world. It transcends the world. And that transcendent truth and that perfection, that divine perfection, that divine vision, that divine perfection, that's what comes down, trickles down all the way to the physical. Not only trickles down, that very same water comes down. And therefore it's perfect. Therefore the Torah works. It works. Here we are, 3,300 years later. It works. It works practically. It works on every level. Because it's emes. It's divine. It's godly. It's openly godly. It's openly revealed. The divine energy that creates the world, the divine energy is concealed in the world. I don't see that divine energy. So even though the divine energy is the source of the world, but the divine energy is hidden and concealed. Yes, the divine energy is constantly creating, but it's concealed at the same time. Versus the Torah is not concealed. The Torah is open. Torah is revealed. It's light. It's transcendent. It's divine. It's godly. And it manifests itself in all its illumination, in all its intensity, in all its loftiness, in all its transcendence in this physical world, in the nitty-gritty, in the practical. This is what's unique to Torah. This is why studying Torah is so special. So the divine energy that creates the world, that's God's speech. It's the lowest level. But the Torah, this is divine wisdom. And it remains divine wisdom. And it retains that transcendence. Even as it's lowered into our dimension, it retains that purity and that transcendence, infinity. That's Torah. That's unique to Torah.
This class is part of the Lessons in Tanya project. More classes available at lessonsintanya.com.